I want to welcome Dr. Shawn Baker here today. He is a huge influence amongst the health and wellness and carnivore space. And we're here today to discuss the benefits, the curious questions, and what is best with strength training, working out, fitness, functional movement with those of us over 40. So I know that there are definitely questions, concerns, and curiosities. What's best for us? What should we move forward? So my first question to you, Dr. Baker, is for advice for those over 40. How often would you suggest any kind of training, any kind of fitness mobility for people who are just starting out and maybe haven't been that athletic prior to their 40s?
Yeah, I think, while we have to make some concessions for age, I think the ones we've sort of been told are probably not that helpful, and I think at the end of the day, we want to be able to train at as high a level as we possibly can, as long as we can. I mean, I think when we raise our functional capacity, we're gonna age in a much more healthful way. We're probably gonna live longer. I mean, that's a kind of a debatable question, but I think that's the case. I think, I put a little pyramid the other day up about what I thought was important. I think number one at the bottom base of that pyramid is movement. And that's just not being sedentary, getting out, walking, moving, stretching your legs, moving around, putting your joints through their full range of motion. And that doesn't have to be with any significant intensity, just, getting out there. One of the best pieces of equipment for exercise you can have is a dog, in my opinion, because, dogs got to go for a walk and, you take your dog out and that's a good exercise. And they're good. Dogs are good, happy people too. And then after that, I think the next thing really on that list would be strength training. And I think that is something that, you need to sort of introduce that into your life, and obviously, it doesn't have to be deadlifting 500 pounds. Little incremental goals can be there, but it has to be progressive. So we call it progressive resistance. So you gotta progress, because your body will adapt to whatever you're doing, and either good or bad. It'll adapt downward or upward, depending upon what you feed it, exercise wise and nutrition wise. And then after that, I think it becomes important to work on cardiovascular fitness. And then finally, the top of that pyramid is what I call athleticism. That is the ability to, be like a kid again, jump, sprint, throw, move things quickly, move your body quickly in all different directions and positions, change of direction, and all those types of things. And so, again, if you're just a sedentary couch potato that hadn't done anything in your whole life, get up off the couch and start walking. That would be my first suggestion, and just build that in your habit. And that should be daily. Honestly, you should be doing something every day. I mean, we talk about 10,000 steps or whatever, and I think that's actually a pretty good recommendation. That is not going to be enough to get you to where I think you could be. But again, if we look at the benefits of exercise, the biggest gains are going from sedentary to non-sedentary. That's where probably 80% of your gains are going to be. Going from non-sedentary to moving to an elite athlete, you're going to get a little bit more gain, but it's not going to be, that's for some people that like that stuff, like myself. I like going really hard. Right. So yeah, I mean, just get moving. Just get off the couch, get moving. You don't need any special equipment to walk. I mean, other than maybe a dog.
Absolutely. I have to say, I think the best, exercise equipment I've ever heard suggested.
Yeah. Little
you heard it here first, folks.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah, and then like I said, I can go into sort of more details on I had my mom's 82 now. How's she? Yeah, she's 82. Came out for a little visit recently, and she was, it's interesting. In her youth, she was an elite level athlete. I mean, she was like a very high level tennis player. I mean, she was like, if anybody knows tennis, there's USTA rankings. She was a 6.0. Just below pro level. So she was quite, she used to teach tennis and was very active up until maybe, as a kid, I remember she kind of dialed it back in her probably late 30s. And then she just never got back to it, and so you could see her just decaying. And I'm like, that's not good. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So at 82, I got her back on an exercise regime. And it started out with just walking. I had her take the dogs for a walk. I said, Mom, go walk 6 laps around the property with the dogs, which is what I do every morning typically, and had her do that. And then started on just, this is, I think, one of the things that we've kind of had a disservice. there was a period of time, and there still is, this sort of thought about low impact, low impact
Mm.
aerobics and all these low impact activities, which, the thought was, well, it'll protect your joints, and the reality is that your joints need some level of loading and impact. Now, again, if you already have damaged joints, it's going to be harder. But the fact that you're if you guys, I don't know if you guys follow me, so I'm jumping all the time, jumping off big boxes, broad jumps, triple broad jumps, all this stuff, and I'm hitting pretty hard. I'm bouncing pretty hard,
Yeah.
and I turned 59 in 2 days. So I'm not young, and I weigh a lot, so that's even more stress on the joints. But what's happening is the cartilage is seeing that stress, and it responds by, you know, getting thicker and stronger, basically. And we know that there were studies in the 1990s on German weightlifters, and they found that
Mm-hmm.
their patella cartilage was thick. It was thicker than
Right.
anyone else because of the stress that it sees. That stress loading, the body responds to. Now, again, you have to do it in a safe fashion so you don't, injure yourself. But your body needs to see that stress. Like, for instance, I used to do a lot of knee replacements on people, right? And so when you look in the back of I put a camera in thousands of people's knees, looking at their knee for arthroscopies, and almost always one of the first places you would see where of cartilage was way, way in the back of the knee. And this is the area in the back of the knee where deep flexion, like squatting in a really deep position, is where that load would be. And because that area is never loaded, because no one's squatting deep, everybody's sitting in
Mm.
chairs, no one's doing those deep squats like you
Yeah.
see those people in Asia sitting in the rice fields, right?
Everybody
Because
in
we
their
don't do that.
ergonomic positions.
Yeah, since we don't do that, that cartilage says, "Well, I don't need to even be here. Why do what
Mm.
I'm not used." So that stuff becomes soft and flaky and crumbles away over time. So we wanna again, load the joints in full range of motion. And again, you have to start slow. And again, this is for someone who's 40 who maybe has not yet developed arthritis. If you have arthritis in the joint, it still makes sense to strengthen the joints, because what happens is, um, instability of the joint is what leads to further rapid wear. Not to mention that a lot of the arthritic change is based upon inflammatory cytokines, which are occurring when we are out of shape, when we have too much adipose tissue. And so, obviously, strength training is going to negate that to some degree. But the other thing is, the stability of the joint is dependent upon the shape of the joint, the bone structure, the ligaments that hold the bones together. And then, of course, the dynamic stability is basically shaped by the muscles and tendons that surround that joint. And by strengthening those things, you better preserve that normal motion. It's like, it's like when your tires are out of balance. What happens to the tires
Mm.
when they're out of balance? They wear out
Yeah.
more rapidly. So when your tires are off balance, when your joints are weak and wobbly, it's going to wear out more. So you want to strengthen things.
Most definitely. It's funny when you mention that, because I've had some interesting concerns, kind of a like side subject, with my son. When he was 11 years old, he tore every single tendon and ligament in his right knee.
Mm-hmm.
He rode cross professionally for a little bit. He was getting into the pro circuit already, and he took one fall, completely bent his knee section backwards, and every tendon, every ligament torn, gone. Went into surgery the first time, and he actually has, I guess, what they call genetic compartment syndrome. So we almost lost him on the table because his leg swelled within 10 minutes. His calf was bigger than his thigh.
Yeah.
So they had to stop the surgery. He ended
Did they
up
end up
being able
doing
to have,
did they do fasciotomies on him? Did they slice him open for that? Yeah.
yeah, in
Yeah.
order
Yeah.
to try to stop.
Yeah. Relieve the swelling. Yeah.
Um, and the second time, though, so what was awful is they grafted a hamstring, right, to be able to do a replacement of the one
ACL.
ACL.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had to trash that because obviously when the compartment syndrome thing started happening, they couldn't do the surgery. So now he's from the second surgery that he ended up having. He's missing part of his quad, two of his hamstrings in the same leg. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Mom, what do I do about this?" And I'm like, "Well, you need to not just sit. Like you need to still, work what you have and create, like a density to the joints that you do have and everything there, so that you can not be immobile. But I think a lot of people kind of get opposite advice. It's like, take it easy, don't put too much stress on it because you've already had this kind of damage. And it's like, how is he supposed to strengthen it if he's not doing anything with it? It just doesn't make sense to me. But back on that, you actually touched quite a few questions that I was is that you, Jenny?
I don't think it's me. I think every time you're speaking, I'm getting that feedback. But
that's why I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing the crackling on your end, so Selena. So I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh, and then where'd she go?
I'm not sure. Maybe she's dropping out. See if it was her. You sound better now, though. You sound better now, so maybe it was from.
I'm wondering if there's. Yeah, I don't know, some sort of interference.
But when she came back, then it comes across.
It's me, but I think it's me that's causing this feedback. Not entirely sure why. I have done hundreds of StreamYard shows with no feedback.
You're right. There you
go. Yeah, but anyways, it's okay. Let's mute me when seems to be not. We can edit this out. That's fine.
Yeah, no problem. No.
I'm a like living example of your son too, because I tore my ACL backcountry snowboarding. And the first thing obviously out of everybody's mouth was like surgery, and I didn't turn to surgery. Now, can you hear me? I don't know if I'm here. I'm here.
Well, we can hear you. We just can't see you.
Neat. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear you. So that's fun. Anyway, if you can hear me, I'll just keep talking.
Okay.
Backcountry snowboarding, tore my ACL, and a few years later, got really into functional fitness and mobility. And for me, it was really exactly as you're saying, Dr. Baker, like really strengthening like those deep squats, making sure I wasn't sitting for prolonged periods of time, moving my body. I think everybody goes up and down. I see this a lot, especially in the 40 plus. We go up and down. We don't remember our body rotates. That seems to be a really interesting thing. So I do a lot of like Qigong movement and yoga movement on top of my strength training, just to make sure I'm keeping mobility in my spine and my knees and all of those joints that are supposed to do this instead of just this. And that's completely strengthened it. I have absolutely the carnivore diet has helped extensively with that as well, but I have no pain or problems with that knee. I snowboard actively. I have no issues with it whatsoever now.
Well, it's awesome. Good for you. Yeah. And I think that
I still can't hear anybody talking.
I'm sorry. Selena, you can't hear us?
I can hear you. It's
okay.
Jenny. Jenny can't hear you.
Okay. Well, I was just responding to her, obviously. So yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, after an injury, after joint damage, I mean, it still makes sense to strengthen. And, I mean, obviously you let it heal first, and then you have to follow it up with the strengthening and functional phase. And I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah, for sure. They didn't do surgery on my son until years later, because of course, when it happened, he still had 85% of his growth plates. So he wasn't, anywhere near tall enough. And it's just a crazy, crazy scenario. I've definitely learned a lot. But back to another question, because you actually already answered, I think, 3 of them that I had prepared. So that was great. One of the things I'm curious about is the concept of overtraining versus under recovery. And like, when does cardio become more of a sabotage than it is beneficial? And how do people kind of differentiate between the two? Because cardio is obviously still like needed and beneficial for us, but I think there is kind of a borderline that I've noticed that some people will maybe overdo it in that direction, and it becomes more of a negative effect for them versus a positive.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that could be said for anything. I mean, there certainly are people that push exercise to a level that becomes, a net detriment to them. And I'm someone who is a huge proponent of exercise, and I exercise every day, and I train intensely almost every day. But there is a volume constraint there that you have to be mindful of. And I think that, for me, I think intensity trumps volume in many ways, so that you train intensely frequently, but with a low volume. And I think you're going to reap the benefits, the maximum benefits. And then you couple that just with the movement to get the benefits from movement. So rather than going for a slow jog for 2 hours a day, every day, you'd be better served just walking and then maybe hitting a couple sprints a couple times a week. I think that would be a better mix of benefits for most people. Again, unless your goal is to be a competitive marathon runner or something else, middle distance runner, then you're going to have to obviously tailor it that way. But I think for just general health, I think people have come to realize, we went through a period of, I think the 1960s and 70s, it was kind of the jogging craze. And then I think, Arnold Schwarzenegger and the bodybuilding movement started in the 70s, 80s. More people starting to work out. It's interesting, let me just digress here a little bit. I get into sort of these battles online. Some of these people, they're the chill maxers. They're like, the old people, they just kind of walk around gently and they don't stress their bodies and they live to 100. And so they're saying that is their justification for doing so. And I said, well, the reality is that when these people that are 100 now grew up, I mean, these people grew up 1920s, 1930s. No one, and I mean no one, was exercising with any regularity outside of just a tiny fraction of the population. Few athletes would do that. But the general population did not exercise. And so those people that made it to 100 were basically just lucky, right? So now, 1960s come along, the 70s. Now about today we see, maybe even 30% of the population exercising at a regular level, and many of them do vigorous exercise. So now we're starting to see some of those people from the 1960s and 70s start hitting their 70s and 80s. And you see the ones that have exercised throughout their life, what they look like at 80 compared to their peers that don't exercise. And there's no contest. Those people that are regularly in the gym, getting after it in their 70s and 80s right now look completely different from, people 50 years earlier at that age. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen those little, I don't know, it's a meme or a little thing on the internet where they take pictures of like people from the 70s and 80s on TV, like All in the Family. Carol O'Connor in his 40s, he looked like he's 65 then. Gene Stapleton, Edith and Archie. They literally look like they were in their 60s and when they were in their early 40s. Right. And so it's like, why do they look so much worse back then? It's because no one back then was really taking care of themselves exercising. And that's why now you see 40-year-olds, they look like they're in their 20s, right? Mm-hmm. So this is so incredibly important. And, I've got another book coming out and I talk about this. The benefits of exercise. I'm known as the carnivore guy, but the reality is I've got a lot more to say about health than just eat meat, right? So some of these things are incredibly important topics, and hopefully we'll get more coverage on that. But where are we going with that? So, so can you overdo it? Yeah. Mark Sisson was, he's been talking about this for years, right? If you guys remember Mark Sisson, Primal Health. What is he got? Primal Food or something like that. Anyway, he has all the avocado mayonnaise stuff. Sold his company for $200 million. Now he's hanging out in Malibu in the south of France, living a good life. Good for him. Good for Mark. But he was talking about, he was a high level competitive runner, like a world class distance runner, and he felt that it just messed him up. I personally, no offense to the joggers out there and the marathon runners, I don't think that is the best strategy for health. I mean, I think it's better than sedentary by far, and it's good, but I think you can do better. And I think that, I think even a lot of the runners are realizing you have to include strength training in your longevity, in your health routine. It is kind of a non-negotiable. Lean mass is metabolically incredibly helpful. It protects us from Alzheimer's. It protects us from diabetes, heart disease, cancer, you name it. So having a little bit more muscle in our body. And I'm not talking about, drugged out bodybuilders. I mean, you should be able to, get as strong as you can without resorting to the drugs. I think that's an important thing. And then, maybe, it's more for a men thing. I don't think there's any women doing that, but there are a few. But I mean, more men, they kind of see these guys that look like superheroes and cartoon figures, and they inject God knows what, how many gallons of testosterone and steroids they stick in themselves. and they swell up, and then a lot of them die early. I mean, they just do. I mean,
Yeah.
some of them do. I mean, not all of them, but some of them do.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
I grew up in that world. My father, he was a professional football player turned pro bodybuilder when he got hurt, basically got both his knees clipped during a practice session, and came out, ended up deciding to become a bodybuilder, and that was during the like late 80s, early 90s, so big during that particular era. And of course we lived in Southern California, so I don't know of a Gold's Gym or a Powerhouse gym I didn't smell in the south of California as my child. But that whole like generation was very much, it's like, I think in a lot of ways they were eating a lot cleaner than a lot of the bodybuilders are now to date. But the reality of what they were doing, it wasn't necessarily an information basis. A lot of them were kind of just winging it based off of, well, this guy said this is what he's doing, and now we're, drinking 20 eggs every morning, and this is what he's doing.
Like what we see on the internet now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But I think the sad part is they left out a lot of the healthy fats, because I remember my dad was like double boiling his chicken to eat every 2 hours so that it was like extra fatless. And I'm like, man, imagine if they didn't get rid of a lot of the healthy fats and just got rid of a lot of the rice that they were also downing. They probably would have been a lot better off.
My cousin was a bodybuilder, and actually now, and knowing what I know, got protein poisoning at the time from doing exactly that. Super lean, the chicken tuna life, double boiling, pulling the yolks out of your eggs, blah, 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 blah. And he competed for a year. And where am I? Why do I keep going away? You know why? It's the snowplows out front of my house took down a line. That's what I saw when I went away for a few minutes there. So I think I'm running off data, but that's okay. Anyways, now what we know to be protein poisoning, we did not understand, because this was back in the 90s as well. And really sad situation, caused him to be quite ill for quite a period of time. And because our knowledge of healthy fat intake wasn't what it is now, or at least in the fitness space, it certainly wasn't. It took him quite a while to recoup. Like, him and his wife couldn't get pregnant for a while, and there was a lot of really bad impacts too. I mean, obviously we know the bodybuilder fitness competition life isn't the healthiest as is, even currently, but yeah, it was a pretty sad scenario.
I think there's something to be brought to attention for people, like you were saying, Dr. Baker, about a lot of these guys, more so in general, have this sort of idolization of this particular physique that seems to be like, this is what you want, without necessarily realizing that is what I would call an extreme, like, athlete goal physique, and not necessarily a natural physique. Like, you can still be muscular and strong, as you are physical proof of this, and not necessarily be a tiny person without being an over excessive bodybuilder frame that is being presented as a normal thing to try to go after in that particular field. I think normalizing what's actually real versus an extremism, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, sure. And then we see, and unfortunately, we see younger and younger kids that are just taking mass amounts of drugs, and they're getting, big and freaky. I mean, and that's happening, and they think it's pretty cool. The problem is, for some of them, it's going to come back to bite them. Now, some of them, and again, most bodybuilders don't die early. I mean, I think that's fair to say, but there are a percentage of them that clearly do. And, it's obviously the ones that tend to abuse the lifestyle more. And it's not necessarily just the steroids. It could be others. Some are cocaine freaks, and they got this weird, crazy lifestyles that go with that. And, I mean, I think that, because I get accused all the time of being on drugs, and I just don't. I
Yeah.
never have, and it's just, I've just consistently worked out my whole life. I'm not that, you know, obscene looking. I mean, I'm 250 pounds, but I'm 6'5", and so it's like, and I've been
Right.
training for literally every week for my whole life since I was 13. And I hopefully when I'm 90, I'll still be doing this if I, God willing, get there. So yeah, I mean, I think it makes, as I said, I think it makes sense, particularly when you're in your 20s and 30s, to get as strong as you can and as muscular as you can without resorting to drugs. And then you can live off that the rest of your life. And it's a lot easier to maintain it than it is to get it. I can tell you that. And then, and then also do it without getting fat. That's the other thing, because you can get really strong, but you get fat too. So you got to make sure you don't get, you put on a little bit of body fat, but you don't want to get this really ridiculous amount. Kind of what I did. I unfortunately did a little of that. I got it to 305 pounds at one point, and was just clearly too much body fat. But again, at 6'5", I could carry it, pretty easily. Yeah, it's something that I think that the problem is, in this day and age where we're competing with everybody else on the internet for clicks and attention, and now you're competing with AI. So rather than just, instead of just injecting yourself with a little drug, just make an AI caricature of yourself and just, you put that up there. And so I think we're going to see, we're entering a very strange age. We're clearly
for sure.
Entering this very strange time to be alive and a human. And I think this stuff is going to, unfortunately, I think some of the AI is going to, you can't trust anything anymore. You can't trust what you see. Anything you see online on your phone, even on your phone call, you get AI, fake people faking, pretending they're your loved ones, asking you for help and money. So you can't believe anything anymore. And I think that's going to have an impact, a profound negative impact on many, many people, unfortunately. This is something, sure, particularly those people that are already mentally frail from their crappy diets, I'm sure you guys are aware the new dietary guidelines came out today. Yes. Was it today? Yesterday?
Yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday. And obviously, it's interesting. Obviously it's not a carnivore diet. I know, I don't think anyone would expect it to be, but the fact they've got a ribeye, not just any steak, but a ribeye steak front and center at the very top of that pyramid is a message. I think it is. Sure. I don't think that was unintentional. They could have stuck a T-bone up there. They could have stuck a New York strip up there, but they chose a ribeye steak for a reason. They didn't put just milk up there. They put whole milk. They wrote that on the picture. Yeah. And the picture is what most people are going to look at. They're not going to read the fine print about the 10% saturated fat and all that crap. They're going to look at that picture and say, okay, this is what my food should look like. And they're going to see eggs. They're going to see ribeye steak. They're going to see whole milk. They're going to see cheese. And they're going to see, the fruits and vegetables and grains have been minimized down there at the bottom. And it isn't that plant-based nonsense that they're pushing in Canada and other places around the world, or what they used to do in the United States. So, we have at least a centering of our dietary problem, or our dietary position in the U.S. for however long it lasts. We'll see what happens. Maybe another HHS secretary will say, "Oh my God, we got to go back to the plant-based
flip it
garbage." So we'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of controversial discussion about, in the carnivore space specifically, about is this even a win? It's still not blah, blah, blah.
I think it's a huge win. I think, anybody thinking they're going to make a carnivore dietary guideline is insane. That's never going to happen. But the fact that, like I said, you've got, number one, they say low carb is an option for people with chronic disease. That's a huge win. The fact that they put a ribeye steak on the front page is a huge win. The fact that they inverted the pyramid, that is that was intentional. That is a South Park meme that they just, I think Kennedy's did that intentionally. He said, "Hey, man,
probably
so upside down," and those were all done by design. And I think the carnivore community, hats off to you guys, by sharing your stories, by being vocal about it on a line, has swayed that. You've made an impact on those dietary guidelines, whether you want to know it or not. But I mean, I guarantee if that community wasn't there, you wouldn't have a ribeye steak on there. You'd have a piece of lean fish, or there's chicken up there, but there would be something, maybe some bottom round, or some, maybe even they probably red meat wouldn't even been on the front page. If you look at the old guy times, the food pyramid, there's no red meat in that picture, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I don't think there was either, because it was considered, a danger for your heart health. And it's Oh, wow. So I have to say, I full-heartedly agree that, this is a huge win for those of us that are in this space, whether it's full carnivore or not. It's like it's a huge just psychological wake-up call for people that haven't even been willing to consider red meats, whole milks, things that actually have a closer biological need for our bodies versus what's been pushed for the last 60 years. So I
I
have
mean,
to think.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the
so
food pyramid from 1990, and they've got chicken, they've got fish, they've got an egg, and they've got a piece of meat, but it looks like a shank. It looks like
Yeah.
a piece of shank, which is super lean. It's like the
yes.
leanest cut. So Kennedy throws up the fattiest piece of meat you can get, a ribeye. So good for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I'll trade you guys. I'll trade you over here in Canada with our glued cloned meat and our
Oh, what the hell
vegan
is that?
meat alternatives and whatever else. Yeah. I went to the grocery store. I think I made a post about this a few days ago. I went to the grocery store 2 days ago, and I'm fortunate that I'm not fortunate there's limited butchers, but my butcher is only open on the weekends. So I needed food. I went to the grocery store. There was zero red meat, not one single
At the
piece
butcher
at the grocery store. My
or the
butcher's
grocery store.
is
Okay.
open on Saturday. So I had to go yesterday, 2 days ago, to the grocery store, Monday. And I ended up bringing home like shrimp and chicken because I'm a devout carnivore also. So for me, it has to be what it is. But I could not find nothing, not a single piece of red meat at this massive store, which is a local store, and they do generally bring in products from local farmers and whatever. So I tend towards it because it's not mass produced foods. But yeah, no lamb, no bison, no. We even have horse here because I live in Quebec. Nothing, none, zero. And I thought, what is the agenda around that? It's not the first time it has happened to me. There was a
Wow.
time I had to go to 4 stores before I found a steak. And I live in a city. I don't live in a small town. Like I live in a very large city. So you have to think about that, right? And you think about it surrounding, like, okay, America the next day released this new food guide. What do we do? But yeah, I agree with you guys. I dug in with somebody yesterday on the food guide who was really hating on it. And I said, look, if we could get 60% of people to follow the new food guide America put out, people would be so much better. Like these are people who are living off of Fruitopia and chips. Would you not rather that they eat whole milk
Exactly.
and less eggs? Like, I can't grasp how you see this as a fail. It's not perfect to us. We know better, but I think it's light years ahead of what most people are consuming.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My my father-in-law, he went to the doctor a few months back, and his blood pressure is starting to rise, and he eats a very standard diet and thinks my husband and I are absolutely crazy, and my in-laws pretty much feel like we need to have DSS called on us for raising our 3-year-old this way, and so their perspective of carnivore is very negative. And his doctor told him, he goes, well, what are you eating? And those crack an egg microwavable frozen things you get, they're like frozen, I don't know, I think like potatoes and vegetables that are obviously extremely processed. And then you crack an egg and you microwave it and then you swirl it all around, right? He goes, well, I eat 2 of those a day, and then the rest of the day I just eat fruit and nuts. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that's a lot of fructose. But the doctor says, oh, well, everything else is fine. You need to take the eggs out. And I'm like, this is literally the only thing of actual beneficial substance for this man. And his doctor just told him to remove the 2 eggs he gets a day. And I could hardly stand it. When I told him, I said, well, 2 months later now, I said, well, has this gotten any better? Have you seen an improvement in the whole reason why you were there? I said, no, they had to up my meds. Like, does this not seem like the most asinine perspective from just a logical thinking place of here you've done the very thing he asked you to, which is remove these 2 eggs, and in the 2-month period of time you've now had to increase your medication. Obviously it's not working. That's not the problem. It wasn't the eggs. It's just crazy.
It is.
Yeah, I see it all the time, with our Rivero patients. You hear the stories of what they went through before, and then, they get to us, and we basically, put them on a decent diet. We monitor them. We look at their labs, and we generally see significant improvements to the point where many of them are coming off, most or all of their medications. And so that's that just shows you how backwards so many people have it. It's crazy. So, Jay, I didn't know you're up in Canada. So you're up in Quebec up there.
I live in Montreal.
So I guess, are you French speaking? I'm assuming, maybe, or maybe not.
Je ne parle pas français, monsieur. I only speak. I'm a German speaker. No, I am one of those Anglophone Quebec individuals, and everyone in Quebec who's listening to this someday are going to hate me. But yeah, I'm an Anglophone Quebecer. I can get through like a grocery store visit, ask them where the red meat is, and that's about the extent of my French speaking capabilities.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's real great. I do have a question, Dr. Baker. I'm curious for you, because I've seen a lot of debate recently, especially for the 40 plus community, on working out fasted. And I want to know your thoughts on that. And do you have a thought on men versus women? Because I'm seeing people really fighting each other strong on this one right now.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what the goals are as far as working out fast. There's nothing wrong with working out fast. And I do that from time to time. It doesn't significantly impact my performance one way or the other. I think, we do know that when you're fasted, you will preferentially burn more fat. I mean, that does occur when we're fasted. However, the question is, do you develop a higher appetite later and then just gain it all back when you eat again? That's the question that comes in there. When it comes to performance, like if I'm going to, like if I wanted to PR something, and I don't do that very often, like I'm kind of break a record or go as hard as I possibly can, I prefer not to do that fasted, because I think that for me is going to be, the likelihood is going to be a little bit lower. But I mean, to get a good workout in fasted is fine. The thought around like protein and building muscle, the data basically shows as long as you get protein in throughout the day at some point, doesn't really matter when you do it. As long as you get an adequate amount, you're going to be fine. It's not going to make a huge difference. Now, again, if you're a competitive bodybuilder and you're eating every 3 or 4 hours and you're taking all the drugs and you're trying to get on the Mr. Olympia stage, then that's a different story. But for the vast majority of it, and I put myself in there included, it doesn't really matter that much. Is there a difference between men and women with working out fasted? I mean, there's some differences between men and women, obviously. And I mean, some of it has to do with, menstrual period, phase, those types of things that do impact, a little bit on nutrition. But again, I think the general rules are, it doesn't matter that much. It's not that big of a deal. Do what you prefer. And just, again, anytime you get in arguments with people, some people, you're always going to find a person that says, but it worked different for me. So then you just accept that and say, okay, whatever, just do what works for you and keep going, press on, experiment, see what works best for you. I don't worry about it too much. I think those things are, it's like fighting fighting about the deck chairs on a sinking Titanic. It's not the big issue. It should be just exercise. If you fasted, unfasted, doesn't matter. Protein before or after, doesn't matter. Just get in there and exercise and do the damn thing. And then you can worry about the details at some other point.
I do have the best internet advice of all time, period, hands down. If it works for you, awesome. If it doesn't, cool, no problem.
And get a dog.
Get a dog.
That's a good one.
Don't fight the deck chairs on the sinking Titanic.
Right. So I do have a question for you in your personal regime, routines, protocol, whatever you want to call it or look at it for yourself, and at the athleticism level that you are at, what are your absolute non-negotiable training What
Well,
do
I
you
mean,
train and it's non-negotiable? I guess that's my question.
gosh, I mean, again, I have very specific goals tailored towards me. I have a very specific background going into that. That is to say, I've
Right.
been lifting and training and build a strength base over a period of 40 plus years. And so I have some things that are just there that I don't have to work on, So like I said, I don't really need to be much stronger. I'm strong as I'll ever need to be. Probably I can maintain it. So my strength work at this point at, nearly 60 is consistent. It's regular, but it's not to the degree that I would have done in my 20s and 30s or 40s even.
Right.
I personally, at this stage of my life, again, top of that period is athleticism, and under that base is strength. You definitely need to be strong to be athletic. You need to be able to move. You need to be able to be fit enough. So I address all those things every week. I mean, I move every day. I walk. I get my 10,000 steps, whatever, every day, non-negotiable, because I got dogs, and the dogs, they depend on me. I don't want my dog pooping in my house either. So we got to take the dogs for a walk, right? So and then I do I strength train probably twice a week, something like that. I mean, that's in some form or fashion. I'm doing a lot of Olympic lifting right now because that particular thing is going to translate, or will correlates better with some of the other goals I have, which have to do with jumping and sprinting right now. I do I think there's several ways to develop cardiovascular fitness. One is you can just go run. You can spend a lot of time in zone 2 and just do your jogging and slow running and do a lot of volume of that. Or you can do the high intensity interval training. I think they're both effective forms for increasing VO2 max, which some people think is an important metric. I think it's it's a sign of fitness, which is great. I prefer to do that just because it's I instead of spending an hour running around outside, I can knock that out in 10 minutes. So I tend to do that. And then now I spend a lot of time just hopping and jumping and skipping and sprinting and bounding and whatever else. I mean, those are the things that I focus on these days. And again, the non-negotiables for me are basically performance based, because I like I said, when I turn 60, I've got these things I want to be able to do. I've stated them publicly. Run a 400 meters in under 60 seconds and a 13-second 100-meter and all that crap that I want to do. And so I've got to do the things that are going to get me there. And the most important, for all the running stuff is top end speed. So we know, for instance, like your capacity to sprint fast wanes after about 3 or 4 days of not doing it. So I try at least twice a week to run as fast as I possibly can. Now I'm only doing that for a couple seconds. I mean, literally, like right now it's winter time here, cold crap. I can't get. I'm on a self-propelled curved treadmill, and I run as fast as I can. I try to 18 miles an hour, whatever I can hit that day. I do that twice a week. I might spend a total of 2 seconds at max velocity in that whole workout. So it's only like 2 seconds of exposure. It's minimal exposure, but that little time at that very, very high capacity keeps it there, right? It keeps my top end there. And so if I can run 18 miles an hour, running 13 is nothing. I mean, it's like jogging for me now. Whereas if you never raise that capacity, whether it be strength or speed or how high you can jump, you're not going to build on it. You're not going to maintain it for sure. So you got to do those things fairly frequently. Like I said, but the volume has to be low. I just from a pride standpoint, I think, I just need to be able to deadlift 500 pounds. I think that's a reasonable number. And I've been able to do that since I was, the first time I ever deadlifted in my life, I was 19. I think I pulled 445. And so I was probably deadlifting 500 by the time I was 20. So from 20 to almost 60, I've always been able to do that. And at some age, I don't know what it's going to be. I won't be able to do that, but hopefully it won't be for a long time yet. So I have some things, and I haven't deadlifted in about 3 or 4 months since I've been doing all these Olympic lifting. So I got to get back and do that, maybe touch on it. The other thing, like strength, is something that it takes about 2 weeks for you to lose that. So as long as you're hitting something heavy every couple of weeks, you're probably going to preserve most of that strength. And there's some other things in between there, like at the very narrow end, it's like sprinting. You start to lose that after about 3 days of not doing it. So once a week, twice a week, once a week minimum, and so it's like 3 to 7 days I've read. So I'd say once a week, run as fast as you possibly can. Now, again, let me put a huge caveat here. don't do that if you've never done it before, because you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to tear a hamstring, you're going to tear an Achilles, you're going to pull your quad, you're going to pull your groin. You've got to slowly build up to that capacity. But once you get it, and it's interesting, because people are always terrified of pulling their hamstring or tearing a muscle or ripping their Achilles tendon from jumping and stuff like that. And that is true for most people that are totally deconditioned and never do that. Jumping on and off a box, you're going to tear your Achilles tendon. But if you start off jumping off a 3-inch box and doing these little hops, little by little, and then slowly building up to where now you can jump off a 24-inch box and land no problem, you're going to protect yourself from those injuries. And your body responds to that. So that's why it's a use it or lose it type of thing. And yes, there are people that get injured that go from relatively sedentary to trying something they're not capable of doing, and they get injured, and that's not a good strategy. So you can't go. I know a lot of people are interested in sprinting now. I've been running sprints since I was a little kid, basically, and I never really stopped over the years. I've always done it. I mean, I'm focusing more technically now. I'm putting spikes on and getting out on the track and getting some coaching to really compete in it. But as far as running fast, I've always done it. Even when I was, a surgeon, weighing 280 pounds, I was still out on the track running sprints. So yeah, I mean, those are some of the things that to me are I just don't want to. For me, I have a sort of minimal standards of fitness, athleticism, and strength that's set for me arbitrarily. And if I can't do that, I fix it. It's just unacceptable. And I think a lot of this is mindset related. It's like, it is unacceptable for me as a human male to not be able to deadlift 500 pounds. I mean, and again, that's specific to me, but that's my mindset. And I will do everything I can to get there, short of taking drugs and all that crap that people do. But I'll put in the training, I'll eat well, I'll sleep well. Sleep, I think, and again, I just touched on that, but sleep is non-negotiable. If you're going to perform well in life, in the gym, on a sports field, on the track, whatever, you need sleep. You need to be sleeping regularly and sleeping well. And these things all go together. I mean, it's sleep, it's exercise, it's light, it's stress mitigation, it's, having a sense of purpose, it's, what your activity level. I mean, all these, I think there's 6 things that I think are just crucial for health. And then everything else is, cold plunging and red light and stuff. That's all fluff. That's all if you're not doing the basics, that other stuff is a waste of time.
Right. That kind of brings me to another question. Sorry, Jenny, do you want to go ahead?
No, I was just saying, yeah, I agree.
Brings me to another question, and I'm sure you're going to have to go here soon. So I want to kind of get this one. What are your thoughts on stretching? Do you do a lot of stretching? Do you do a lot of, I would assume that you do warm-ups quite a bit to make sure that everything's, got good blood flow. But what about stretching? Are there specific things that you think are a better source of that for somebody who's going to be doing a lot of strength training?
So I think that, the data on stretching it's kind of evolved over the years. Before you used to be everybody doing static stretches, and they saw that actually compromised weightlifting performance because the muscles lost some of the tension, right? So you kind of stretched out and you became like a stretched out rubber band. I mean, it's a way to conceptually think about it. There's more going on than that. But I think that generally, I do it's kind of funny. My warm up right now, I do something called RPR, which stands for reflex performance reset. It's this kind of weird voodoo-y thing where you're just stimulating certain aspects of your body to sort of wake up the muscles, or some sort of neurologic basis on this. The science on that's kind of mixed. The literature is some say, yeah, it shows significant results for injury protection and performance. Others say, yeah, it doesn't really work that well. A couple pretty well respected guys in the strength and conditioning world that promote this. One guy named Cal Dietz, and a couple other ones are out there. Chris Corfus, I think, is the other one. And so I do that. I got this it's basically like a vibration massage gun. I'm on there just doing all these muscle groups. And then I hop on the exercise bike and I pedal as fast as I friggin' can for 5 seconds, hard as I can. And I'll do 3 rounds of that, walk around and I'll do a little bit of mobility stuff for power cleans, maybe some what's called deep tier plyometrics. And again, this is another, maybe you haven't heard that term before, but a plyometric is basically, bouncing, collision and jump, collision and you're hopping on one leg and bouncing, jumping. And then you do these deep tier plyometrics where you get these really deep joint angles, like you get into that deep squat position and you come into there with velocity, a little bit of dynamic motion in there. And so it kind of simulates what I'm going to be doing in the gym. And then I take lightweight warm-ups. Like when I'm doing cleans, I might start out with just a bar, 95 pounds, and maybe working up to 250 pounds or something like that. So I'll take all these lighter, and that to me is what works, stretches me in the range of the motion that I need for that particular activity. But I don't sit there and I remember, like you guys remember the foam rollers when those were popular. And then some people still use them a little bit these days. But I mean, there was a period of time about 10 years ago where I would go to the gym. I might warm up on the bike for 5 minutes, and then I'd start doing weightlifting. I might do deadlifts, or I might be doing some power cleans or something like that. And there'd be a guy that was next to me in the next little section stretching. And I would do my entire workout, be done, and be leaving the door. And he's still in there foam rolling and doing his mobility exercise. I'm like, what the hell, man? He spent 45 minutes stretching. Again, I mean,
it's a massage at this point.
Well, I mean, it's like there's some of this kind of like a waste of time. And maybe, but I mean, to be fair, like when I go out on the track and I'm going to go out and run, some all out, 40-yard dashes or 10-meter flies or 100-meter dashes, I spend 20 minutes hopping and skipping and jumping and warming up because what I'm doing at that point, and again, there's a little difference. So when you go in there and go to the gym, do a set of deadlifts or some squats, it's heavy. Yeah, you're putting some stress on the muscle, but it is nowhere near the intensity that your joints or your muscles and tendons experience when you're at a max velocity sprint. I mean, it's an order of magnitude difference. Like I said, for some people, they experience 10x their body weight across their hip flexors when they're sprinting. So I weigh 250 pounds. 10x my body weight is 2,500 pounds of stress across my hip flexors, assuming I could hit the speed. So probably a little less because I'm not quite as fast. I can't do that in the gym. There is no amount of weight I could lift that would stimulate that much stress across my body that I instantaneously hit, on those sprints. So I think you owe it to yourself to better prepare yourself for that. But I mean, just going to the gym and I'm going to go and do a set of bench press or squats. I mean, I might do a couple easy warm-up sets, maybe some minimal stretching, but I don't spend a lot of time. I think spending 30 minutes making it its own deal is not worth it for those activities. Now, mobility, getting out there, doing stuff, moving in different directions, that's fine. That should be maybe its own separate workout, and you can kind of try to do that. And I do a little bit of that stuff from time to time, and I kind of incorporate it in between sets and that type of stuff. But I mean, I'm kind of minimalistic when it comes to that, to be honest.
Nice. Well, I don't know if you have any more questions yourself, Jenny.
I don't even know if the internet's trustworthy at this point. So I don't want to ask the question and then disappear on the answer. So I'll leave it at that. But really, we kind of just covered. My big one there was the fasting question because I'm seeing that so frequently right now. But no more from me.
All right. And I think this might be a good place to go ahead and take our stop and our pause. And I want to thank you so much, Dr. Baker, for taking the time and going through this with us, because I think, we're both in the same position where, yes, we are carnivore, but we're also wanting to bring awareness to the broad spectrum of health and just well-being and making our bodies as optimal as possible. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. And that's, I think that's a good place to end. I've got a little T-bone steak I'm going to go eat here in just a second. And I'm going to work out a little later today. So thank you y'all for doing this, and keep up the good work yourself. And let me know if I can be of help down the road, and maybe stop by for another visit.
Awesome. Sure. That would be wonderful. I don't want to assume that everybody knows where they can find you, but I know that you are on social media as...
Yeah, for sure. So social media, well, let me just say for one thing, I'd be remiss not to point out that I'm at Rivero, I meet with our patients every week. So if you want to talk to me as a patient, then come join Rivero, and I'll be happy to at least, discuss what I can with you. I am on social media at Instagram, Shawn Baker 1967. And so January 10th, 1967 will be my 59th birthday. I'm excited about that.
Oh, happy birthday.
Saturday. So I'm very excited because that means I'm 1 year closer to 60. And once I hit 60, I got all these age group world records that I'm looking at. I'm like, yeah, I can hit those. I can hit that.
Right.
So that'll be cool. So there, Shawn Baker 1967 on Instagram. I'm on X, or what used to be Twitter, as S Baker MD. And then on YouTube, what are the other ones? Facebook and TikTok, Shawn Baker MD. So
Awesome.
go there and see the stuff.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Baker.
Thanks,
All right,
Dr.
you guys
Baker.
have a wonderful. Thank you. Thanks again.
Thanks.